All right, we're going to talk about one of the biggest things you need to do right now in AI, and that's to start making your company an AI first. We're going to talk about some of the crazy AI stats about AI not working, why you need an AI not yet folder, how to infuse AI into your employees, and how Brent Weaver here from E2M. Brent, say hi.
Great to be here.
How they started an AI first Saturday, exactly how they ran it and how they got a massive output in AI projects. We're going to talk about the key internal tools that they built, the hardest thing to use AI for in your agency, the first place you need to be using it, the big reasons that AI agencies will stay in business for years to come, how E2M is starting creating AI superheroes, and the KPI that you need to raise, that you will raise, as well as the number one thing I think Brent thinks you need to learn about AI and how to learn it. All this on the Garlic Marketing Show, but of course, this is brought to you by videocasestory.com. One of the best things to use AI for is to hyper personalize and get more people to your video case stories. But you need awesome video case stories. You need that $1 million case story, which will help you find if you go to videocasestory.com/finder. All right, let's get started.
My name is Gino Wickman. I was introduced to Ian, and that's what brought me into this video world and got me embracing this video world. And Ian did exactly what I hoped. He got me really comfortable with putting videos out to the world and having a great strategy around putting videos out to the world, because there's so much more than just shooting a video. And so the way that he positions those videos, optimizes those videos, he's done a great job.
So Brent, give us a quick little bit about your background, and then let's get into the AI first.
Yeah, so I'm currently CEO at E2M. We're a white label digital agency, and I jumped into this role in June of this year. Prior to E2M, I was running and scaling an agency coaching program for just over 12 years. That company was called U-Gurus. We were acquired by Cloudways and then DigitalOcean in 2021. So the last 3 years that I was working in that business was, as a director at DigitalOcean. I kind of looked over their whole agency partner program for their managed cloud hosting, as well as the professional services team through the U-Gurus business. So yeah, it's been an interesting last few years, and obviously with AI coming on the scene, it's definitely it quickly evolved in some other areas, but yeah, it's a little bit about my background.
Nice. And when did you start empowering your team? Were you doing it when you were with DigitalOcean, or is it something that happened recently when you moved over to E2M and really empowering the team with AI?
I would say like we were doing some things with AI at U-Gurus. A lot of it was community empowerment. So we had a series, an AI in your agency series of webinars that we were hosting. So we'd bring in like our mentors, we'd bring in members, people that I knew from the community. We'd kind of run these like webinars about AI and agencies for, probably close to like the last year. So I think at U-Gurus is more about like community empowerment. We had an agency intensive last fall, so 2024, and I would say AI was a huge part of that couple-day event, probably 3-day event, and so we had some folks come in and talk about that. I'm not gonna lie, like in a corporate environment, like within DigitalOcean, publicly traded company, our AI trust and governance and security and like what had to happen in order to use AI tooling in the course of business in terms of like customer data, things like that. It was very strict. It was very difficult to, both, you had to kind of create your entire like vision and mission and purpose and outcomes and objectives. And you had to have all that stuff reviewed by trust and governance and data and InfoSec and all that kind of stuff. It was definitely a process. And so I think it was, being in that corporate environment, things moved a little bit slower. So a lot of the AI initiatives that we had were kind of still work in progress. I think moving into the role at E2M, even just a couple of months before I joined the team, it was very clear that I needed to kind of up level in this area and come in with a really great plan. And so I'd say in the last 3 months since joining E2M, that's been, probably half of my job is thinking about how are we leveraging artificial intelligence within the company, but also how are we going to enable our customers to leverage artificial intelligence in their just general course of business within their agency.
Nice. Yeah, and folks, if you don't know exactly all about E2M, we'll put a link in the show notes. We've had Manish on a couple times, who's the founder of it, and we've dived deep into it. Amazing, amazing service. We use them as well to help support us at the agency. I think I want to step back because what you said about corporations being slow with this, I think it's really an advantage for smaller businesses that corporations are moving slow, because you would think like, oh, well, all the corporations have got all the AI in place.
Yeah, I mean, I think like to say that DO necessarily moves slow might not be 100% accurate. I think just in terms of like there was a lot of AI initiatives at DigitalOcean that were very like hardcore engineering level. Like they bought Paperspace, which is an AI infrastructure and hosting company. I think just generally like in our business unit, right, it was more of like, hey, here's this tooling. We need to kind of figure out like how we could use this, right? Like AI wasn't central to like the services that we were delivering, and they had a very like strict like process in order to leverage AI tooling for good reason, right? Because you've got like personal identifiable information, you've got like customer data, like there's all sorts of things that like an infrastructure company like that has access to. So obviously they've got to have like really rigid and well-defined processes to protect customers and all that kind of stuff. And so I think that, DO generally had had absolutely best practices for that sort of thing. I think that there's certainly like, there's some advantages that enterprise has, and there's some advantages that small business has. Enterprise has the data. Enterprise has large amounts of customers. Enterprise has, single-threaded teams that they can put off on some skunks work project and be like, hey, we want to use, AI in this area of our business. They can probably very easily staff a full-time team of, either people that have been fast adopters with AI or people that actually have like deep domain level experience, right? So for a Fortune, 1,000 company to go spend $1 million or $5 million or even $10 million on just like an idea is entirely possible. So in that way, like enterprise, I think has some clear advantages. But that being said, if you look at the data, I don't know, something like I was reading these stats the other day. Something like 70% of AI efforts saw little to no impact. That was a stat from MIT. Nearly 75% of corporate AI initiatives fail to deliver on their promise. That's from Fortune. Gartner says at least 30% of generative AI projects will be abandoned by the end of this year. 42% of AI initiatives are scrapped and never make it to production. That's from CIO Dive. So there's a lot of stats about where like AI projects don't ever turn into anything. But that's for enterprise, that's for small business, and those stats at first glance can be hard to like kind of stomach, right? Like especially as a small business owner, right? Like the business owner or some of their team is going to have to make these investments in their spare time. And, if you think, okay, me as a business owner, I'm going to waste all my time tinkering with this stuff, and there's a really high possibility that it's not going to add any value to my business, that might not be the most exciting proposition. But what I tell people is that, investing in AI is about asymmetrical returns. You're making small bets of time and energy into AI tooling, and the downside is you might lose that time, right? Okay, if I invest 100 hours of AI in my business this quarter, like I might not get any immediate return on that. But the reality is, if you do get a return on that, it has the potential of being asymmetrical, meaning that like you might build something in your business that creates value like from now until the end of time. And the example I gave at a recent conference I spoke at was, imagine proposal writing. Like imagine a future where you never had to write a proposal again. Like if you're in sales, if you're an agency owner, or if you're a business owner and you write 10 proposals a week and all of a sudden you built an AI tool to build your proposals for you, like because of the way AI works, it might actually be a tool that could solve your proposal writing problem from now until like forever, like the next 30 years, right? So let's say you spend 100 hours figuring that out. That's a small bet relative to the potential upside of never having to write another proposal for the rest of your business ever again. So that's kind of the asymmetrical upside. So I would expect actually a really high number of AI projects are scrapped, but the number of the ones that do work for businesses, they're going to really work. They're going to be really big game changers for the business, which is why I think people should continuing to invest in AI projects, even though a lot of the projects might lead to failure.
That's an amazing perspective because, I'm like looking through my AI journey in the past 18 months, there was a lot of stuff that like I got to like 50% and I said, nope. Right.
Yep.
And either started over, pivoted, whatever. And I think that, just because I have a background of like, of knowing that some of the stuff just isn't going to work and knowing when to stop and go, okay, go difference. But I know a lot of people like, I literally was just talking to someone who's a big project manager slash developer for a lot of major influencers, like, that we know. And Joe was talking to her about it and she goes, well, I kept trying to use AI. I used it a couple times in project management. It just frustrated me and I stopped. Right. And I think that's another advantage is like having that mindset that you just talked about, knowing that some of it's not going to work, but just like kind of like a squirrel running around for the acorns. I think that helps me. That and eventually you're going to get that acorn that becomes the big tree, right?
Yeah. And maybe in certain cases, like, you get to a point where you realize the tech is not reliable enough. And, Sam Altman said that the Moore's law, right, like the doubling effect is, like, so for Gordon Moore, right, the chip, right, was like 18 months or whatever, right? So every 18 months, double the number of semiconductors on or transistors on a semiconductor or whatever. I'm probably butchering that, right? But the idea is you're fitting more processing power on the same amount of space, right? Twice as much processing power in the same amount of space, which has made computers go from a room to like, a supercomputer in our pocket, right?
Our pocket, yeah. On my
yeah, on your watch, right? You got like a wristwatch, right? Like I don't have one of those fancy Apple watches, but so if you go, okay, 6 months is the Moore's law of AI. So if something is not working for your workflow, then just wait 6 months, and there's a good chance that it actually will, right? Because the capabilities of AI are doubling about every 6 months, and so. I wouldn't, if you have some of those projects where you're like, hey, I got this to 50%, I got this to 75%, I don't think it's a bad idea to say, look, I'm getting diminishing returns on this. I'm not getting it to where I want. I think there's a couple of reasons why you can put that on the side for a minute, right? One is because, hey, put that into a folder that says, hey, this is, the not yet folder, where maybe in 6 months I can reopen this automation or reopen this project, and maybe there'll be a tool or a technology that will actually help me close that gap. The other thing too is like, I think just as a business leader that hasn't been in an engineering seat for many years, I think the last web application that I personally was coding was probably somewhere around 2007. And then my developers like kicked me out and they said, go find clients. You're much better at that. And so, I still did like a little coding here and there, but like real ownership of like, a 5 or 6 figure project. It's been some years. So for me, like getting into an engineering kind of mindset with AI, like sometimes I just need some sleeps on something. Like I build an automation for something, or I build an application that has some AI integration, and I get stuck. And I just have to like put it on the side and be like, I'm going to come back to this later because I've wasted so much time on this. And then I come back a week later and I look at it and I'm like, why was I having such a hard time with this? And I end up having some kind of breakthrough or simplification, right, on that. So I think it's an exciting time, but it's also a time of a lot of, a lot of change, a lot of disruption, a lot of people not sure what the next, 3 years is going to look like, let alone the next 10 years.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 3 months.
Right.
And what I love about this conversation is like you and I are both excited about AI. We're like, no, it's the future. And, it's making an AI first culture because this was like 3 years ago now, 4 years ago, I came to my team and said, we need to focus on AI and everyone here needs to be using AI. And it was tough. And getting that adoption, but now you're doing it with 300 people.
Yeah.
Obviously, A, why do you feel it's that important? And then B, how do you do that?
Yeah. Well, what is it's like I guess kind of the Warren Buffett thing about focusing on not just what's going to change, but what's going to stay the same. I think, a a lot of people ask, like, well, what'll be the next technology? What's the next product? And, he's like, well, I don't know that, but like, I do know that the last, if you look at the last 50 years or whatever, like what's the best selling candy bar? It's like, it's Snickers. What do I think the best selling candy bar in the next 10 years, whatever is going to be? It's Snickers, right? So it's like finding those things that are going to be consistent and staying the same, while still like adopting some of this technology is important. And so, what do clients care about? They care about results. They care about speed. They care about cost, and so those are the things that we're thinking about at E2M as in terms of like, what's the common thread here? What should we, if we're investing time in AI, what should we be trying to accomplish? Well, we should be trying to get clients better results. We should be trying to get clients results in a faster manner, and we should be trying to get results in less time, more efficient, right? And so in order to try to do that at some level of scale, both from a top-down perspective, right? Like you, as a leader, we could say, focus on AI, right? That's top-down, right? Focus on AI. I want to see AI. I want to see AI, right? But then from a bottom-up perspective, I could see a team member say, well, you're telling me to invest time on AI in one hand. On the other hand, you're telling me that I have all these client deadlines for projects that I need to ship by the end of this week. And so I think for a lot of people in a service environment, those things are in direct conflict with one another, right? You need to deliver these things for clients because we've been paid to do them. And at the same time, I want you to become the next AI expert, right? Which takes a lot of unstructured, unfocused time where you can't be working on deliverables. You have to do research and development. You have to do non-billable time. And so one thing that we've realized as an agency is we have a decent amount of unbillable time. It's just the nature, I think, of running a business. You can't have team members at 100% utilization all the time. The problem is that nobody has that unbillable time at the same time, right? We have 330 or so people, and everybody's got these little pockets of an hour here, 2 hours there, half a day here. So we implemented a pilot called AI First Saturdays. So every first Saturday, the team comes on site to our Ahmedabad office, and we do a combination of like content, of training, of some live demos. And we've kind of created this culture of like, hey, first Saturday, we all come together. You guys are investing that Saturday in professional development. We're going to invest some company resources in making sure that everybody has, lunch brought in, that we have speakers and content. And then, we're kind of having this like this culture moment where we're all coming together. And then outside of that time, people can spend their small downtime like working on their projects that they're going to then come to AI First Saturday, do some show and tell, show their squads what their progress has been, things like that. And so obviously that's something that some companies might say, hey, my employees would be like not super excited to come in on first Saturday, right? Whatever. But we look at this as like, hey, this is kind of I don't want to call it emergency. I don't want to be that like sky is falling type of person, but we do think this is important from our workforce standpoint. Like we're concerned about two things. We want our clients to be successful as they go through this AI transformation, right? We want agencies to still be here in 10 or 15 years, and we want our team members to be successful as well. And so I feel like you have to find that common ground of like, where can we both invest? And so for us, the AI First Saturday is one area that we're making happen. And we're doing something similar with our Vistara event for our customers, in that we want to see our customers also adopt AI successfully. We don't want to see our customers edged out of the market. We don't want to see our customers left behind. And so we decided to put together a 2-day conference for agencies just wholly focused on agency growth and AI called Vistara. It's September 28th through 30th. I'm excited to announce that it is sold out. You can join the wait list on the website. So this is not like a big pitch for Vistara, but we're seeing these kind of ways to make an active investment in AI by kind of getting our hands dirty and creating space for it.
Yeah, and I'll put a link to Brent's LinkedIn, and you can friend him and then beg him for a ticket. But it's exciting. I love the idea of AI First Saturdays. What are some things that you've seen come out of it? And then I want to talk a little bit more about Vistara.
Yeah. Well, we had over 140 like pitches internally for different ideas. So on that theme of what are things that we can help our clients get better results? What are things that can save time? What are things that could deliver new capabilities that we don't currently have, right? Either through superpowers or like designers being able to do development work, developers being able to do design work. Like, what are some things where we can increase capabilities? So we had several themes around what we wanted to see out of these things, but we had over 140 pitches. And then our leadership team and some of our AI mentors worked with the individual contributors and kind of built squads. So we kind of took the best ideas and we started to build some squads around these ideas. And so, we've seen, I don't know if I'm sure your listeners use the tool Loom as an example. Any software that has a per seat cost. We have over 300 team members at E2M. So any software that has a per seat cost is kind of a pain in the butt, right? Because you have it's like, okay, if software costs, $15 per user per month, right? And maybe we can go in and negotiate down a rate, but even $10 per seat per user per month, right? That's a significant cost to a company of our size. And so a team member built, using a no-code, tool, built essentially a substitute. Doesn't have all the bells and whistles of Loom, but it gets like the core job of like recording a screencast, uploading it to like a private, like internal video storage where we can share that directly with a client with, proper security and permissions on that. So, that's an area where, hey, and we don't have any limits on that. It's not like, hey, you can record 5-minute videos or you got to upgrade or whatever, so they were able to create a competitor within, a couple of months. Not a competitor, but like a substitute internally, right? We now have we have an internal project management system that we use to kind of consolidate all of our tasks and projects. One of the things that's unique about E2M is we actually go into our clients' project management system and we act as a team member within your space. So if you're using Asana or Teamwork or ClickUp or Monday or Basecamp, right? We're in all of them. And clients ask us, they're like, how do you guys keep this all sane, right? Well, our team takes that information and puts it into our own kind of private project management system that has a lot of internal tooling. And so we have an internal AI agent that's attached now to our own project management system called Ally. And so the Ally tool, it helps to, verify things that clients have told to us about projects. It helps to make sure that we check the client's SOPs before we assign the task internally to make sure that we're adhering to the agency's standard operating procedures. A lot of agencies have very specific ways they like things done. So Ally is a tool that came out of that as well. So, we have we had, I think, 40 demos of like completed AI projects a couple weeks ago, and we're now choosing our kind of top 3 as winners, and we have that ceremony on Wednesday. So we're doing literally like a winners ceremony for like the best AI pilots internally, and so I think it's just creating some space, a little bit of showmanship for helping to elevate people that are building cool stuff internally, and that seems like it's working really well in terms of getting the company to just like be excited about AI and be willing to kind of fail and try things that might not work and keep that momentum.
Love that. That's so cool. It's fun, gamifying it a little bit, getting people excited and, and doing some cool things and be able to say, hey, I built this. Most of the people listening to this don't have a 300-person company. And especially don't have like a development-centric, tech-centric company, like even, especially agencies, a lot of them have, artists, creatives. When you look at AI, and let's say you were starting, obviously you've coached agencies, you've done the gamut of it. When you look at AI, if you had a 5-person agency, what would be the first things that you bring in-house and develop in-house? And what would be things that you would outsource? Where would you start?
I mean, I think the things that are going to be hardest to use AI for is like owning the client relationship and probably some elements of like the client strategy. I think those are things that they can certainly be AI assisted, but I don't think there's a scenario in the next few years where a client is going to want to talk to an AI agent to like run their overall marketing. I think there's a certain element of accountability in that because, I mean, just imagine, you went to chat and said, hey, get my company leads or whatever, right? I mean, there's all sorts of things that could go wrong in that scenario, right? And there's no accountability with chat, right? There's no Claude or whatever, right? I mean, if that app does something, or inside that tool, if I had an agent, if I was in agent mode and it did something that negatively affected my brand or did not get me results, like there's no neck to squeeze, if you will, right? Like it's like you're not going to be suing OpenAI. I mean, that's not happening, right? You're paying $20 a month for some tool, right? And so I think that with an agency, I think clients are going to always want to use agencies because there's a certain level of accountability there, right? Like there's a business relationship, there's a contract for like, I'm going to get you these results. And so I think that relationship, that customer service relationship, et cetera, like as an agency owner, I would focus a lot of my energy on that part of the equation, right? I might not want to invest super heavily in some of the areas of technical implementation. I might not want to build out like a really expensive development team. I might want to try to find somebody who can do that's maybe got the engineering mindset, but is very AI first, and they can. Have you ever seen the movie Fantasia, right? Where the Mickey Mouse is like he's orchestrating the whole thing, and all the brooms are moving around. Like I kind of want like that's what I love to see, right? Is the developer, software engineer that can leverage the AI tooling and do the work of 25 developers. For the price of one, right? And I think that's something that we're trying to do internally within E2M is really create each one of our team members as like AI-powered superheroes where we can do 2, 3, 4, 5 times the amount of work as a comparable team member that's not using AI. So I'd be looking for those types of team members, and on a metric level, I'd be looking for how much revenue can we generate per employee? And I think that's going to be a key metric, how much top line revenue and also how much net margin can we generate per employee. I think typically agencies have been around the $150,000 to $200,000 mark for like if you have a US-based team member, with US-based clients. Now that number changes dramatically when you're talking about global teams and global clients, but if you can get to the point where you're generating $500,000 in revenue per FTE in an agency, or $1 million, right? Can you get to a $5 million agency with 5 or 6 people? I think those are interesting questions, right? We don't want to chase the revenue, but that's more about thinking about the impact, right? Can you have one person create the same level of impact that 5 years ago would have been a 5 or 10 person team? I think a lot of us are saying that, like they're like, oh yeah, this is like we're saying that it's possible, but then actually seeing agencies, like where's the $10 million a year agency that has 10 employees and no contractors, right? That I think is where the proof is. And so I think as an agency owner, I'd be looking at those kind of metrics and figuring out how do I build a team that can use these tools as a point of leverage and get our clients killer results.
Love that. I love that. Tell me a little bit about who's going to be at Vistara, the AI conference this year. Who will be speaking? What will be the topics? And where can someone get on the wait list for the next one?
Yeah. So E2M, we're a white label agency. We do web services, we do digital marketing services, and we do AI services. Web is like WordPress, Shopify, BigCommerce, that kind of stuff. Digital marketing is SEO, pay-per-click, and the AI services right now are basically fractional AI services where you can hire our team to do AI automation, AI app building, things like that. So the event is going to have content kind of supporting agencies that do those types of services. So when we think about, how do we help an agency accelerate their adoption of AI, we're kind of a little bit viewing it through the lens of those different disciplines, right? So we don't really have a lot of content, let's say, for like PR agencies. I'm just giving you an example because E2M doesn't really do that. So primarily we wanted to make sure that our customers were prepared for the AI revolution. So that was kind of the genesis of the event was we want to make sure that our clients are successful with AI so that they're still around in 5 years and 10 years, et cetera. We've got some amazing speakers from the E2M team coming over. So we've got our COO, Khushbu Doshi. She'll be making the trip. We've got one of our partners, Ronak Patel, who went on to founded a company called Weem.ai. I personally, and I'm gonna admit this on air, I didn't really have like the strongest fundamental background on how LLMs work, how the kind of neural networks work, how the training data works. Like I just, I had never gotten somebody that explained it to me really well. We had a conference that we held in India, and Ronak was one of our speakers, and I watched his talk there, and it was like, I feel like the heavens opened, and for the first time, I actually understood like how models work and how the training works, and what the why there's differences between models, and like what that means, and how the models are getting more sophisticated. Like, I mean, those are jobs that people are getting paid millions and millions of dollars per year for like one seat. Like when you hear, Meta recruiting people for like $100 million a year, right? It's like the people that understand that stuff. Like Ronak is one of those people, right? So Ronik's going to come and give an amazing talk. We got Jonathan Mast. I don't know if you know him from Whitebeard Strategies, Whitebeard Studios. He's coming over. We got Mike King from iPullRank. We've got Andy Crestadina from Orbit Media. And we've got some of our clients are going to come actually showcase some of the case studies of how they've implemented AI within their agency. Lauren from Villain Branding. I don't know. We've got a whole bunch of those. If you want to see the full speaker lineup, you can check it out at joinvistara.com. That's V as in Victor, ISTARA.com. Joinvistara.com.
All right, we'll put a link to that in the show notes. I mean, that's an amazing lineup. And I want to stress something that you said, that the heavens opening moment. I think it's because I put it like this. I was really, really good at math. And, to the point where when I was in calculus, they're like, you have to show all your work, and like, well, I'm using pi. I know how pi works. And I'm like, well, if you memorize pi to 200 digits, you don't have to show your work. So I went and did that. I hated showing my work. And, that took a lot longer than showing my work. But I think that it's kind of the showing the work of and understanding how AI works is so critical to moving forward, because there's so many promises that companies make. And I think this is the problem is, we're watching the videos of the promises and the no code and low code, but really understanding the true capabilities of AI and like what you were saying in the models is so important for agency owners. I think that's just alone going to be worth the price of admission.
Yeah. I honestly, I tell you, just to come hear Ronik's talk would be like great. And I think too, right, like you'll see people when you watch one of the high failure rates, right, is you'll see people implement an AI solution, and there's kind of this idea of like probabilistic versus deterministic, and kind of understanding the difference between the two is important. But like you'll use AI for a situation that is highly deterministic. Like it always, you have an input and you should always get the same output. And that's not really a great application of AI. Whereas, if you want to have something where you have, variable inputs and you will have an outcome that can be different but can still achieve your end result, like that's a really good way to do it. Like if you went to AI and you gave AI the same prompt, like write me a story about XYZ, and you gave that same prompt over and over, right, each time you're going to get like a different output, but it's still going to meet the requirements of the prompt. And so you just kind of have to understand, like, that's how AI works. And so sometimes you see people kind of using it for implementations where they really want something that's more deterministic, and it's like understanding that concept alone, right, is going to help people frame and go, okay, here's a space where AI is going to be really useful. Here's a space where AI might not be as useful. I can give you one example. I'm sure we're probably over on time, but I had I was building an automation for myself that was processing emails that I was getting from like a notification, right? Like a system notification. And I normally would get that email, I'd read it myself, and then I'd determine like, who does this need to go to, right? And it was there's some level of security or kind of just general business. Like I didn't want to hand it off to like a low-level VA or have other people in my inbox for security around like banking and finance and things like that. And so in my head, I was like, oh, this is going to be great for AI. And then I started to I used AI to help me build the automation. And going through that process, I determined like, actually, I don't need to use AI in the actual automation, but I used it to build, right? So in that case, like AI was my tool to help me as a non-technical person build something that's highly technical, writing lots and lots of code, building automations, building workflows, all that kind of stuff. But it turned out that I actually didn't need to actually use AI to read the email and to determine what to do with it. I could use some kind of HTML parsers, and it did just fine, right? But I used AI to help me build the tool, and it didn't actually end up being in the tool, right? Which I think for a lot of people that are non-technical, you might not be 100% clear on that when you first start out. But there might be a lot of cases where you actually don't need an AI tool. You just need, advanced automation or something like that.
Yeah, and there's a great, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes. There's a great article from Anthropic, Agents versus Workflows, and it's a fantastic. And anyone's listening to this, I think everyone should read it. I send everyone to it. They explain it really well, but that's an exact use case for it. But having the AI build it is a fantastic use case, and you don't need to necessarily infuse AI into it, and you can discuss it with it. And I think these are all skill sets that people need to learn. But that's fantastic. We'll put a link to joinfizzar.com. Make sure and you spend most of your time. Where's the best place to follow you, Brent?
Yeah, you can hit me up on LinkedIn, just linkedin.com/in/Brent Weaver. You can hit me up there or drop me an email, Brent@2M Solutions.com.
All right, we'll put a link to all that in the show notes. Brent, thank you so much for being on the Garlic Marketing Show. It was great to have you, and it's really interesting stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, Ian.
And thank you all for taking Brent and I on your journey, making us part of your story. This has been Ian Garlic and the Garlic Marketing Show.